Yes, and I'm a fan of Conan the Barbarian. He's on my shelf, too. When my enemies give me attitude,
My crumb, I eat their hearts.
Martin Heidegger is what happened to existentialism. Existentialism began with Nietzsche and Kierkegaard and Dostoevsky, and when it wasn't even called that. And then Heidegger kind of happened to existentialism, and Sartre picked up on it, and Sartre and his girlfriend Simone de Beauvoir were probably the last existentialists with Camus. Heidegger is a phenomenologist. He differed from Husserl's phenomenology in fundamental ways. Phenomenology gets pretty circular. It emphasizes conscious experience. In America, where philosophy is dominated by the analytics, and where people like Heidegger and Sartre and Nietzsche are treated like museum pieces, Heidegger just isn't even saying anything. They're so exacting about language, and it's so much about linguistics that Heidegger gets pretty shredded. A brief history of time from the Big Bang to the black hole, Stephen W. Hawking. This book is just a very general popular science thing about black holes and light cones and the Big Bang. And these are subjects that are, of interest to cosmology, the branch of the philosophy that studies, the cosmos, obviously. But I was intrigued by Hawking's little book because he was the first that I knew of to suggest that there was the possibility of a source for time. Now, there's no proof for a source of time, but it's one model that you can suggest explains a number of things. And he doesn't go into any detail or anything, but I found that really pretty interesting. And I do hold out the hope that someday there'll be more of an empirical, way of corroborating the idea for a source for time. A source for time would mean that source for time, by its very nature, would have to be independent of past, present, and future, so that the beginning of the universe is now. Right now. Intuitively, I am convinced of it, but I have, there's no proof. I did have a phase when I was young that, physics proves mysticism. It doesn't. It just opens the door. The frontiers of physics opens a door, and there is that possibility, but there's nothing to be said about it in any finality. Oh, and please keep in mind that if there is a source for time, death has no meaning. Okay, ultimately no meaning. All right? If there's no before, after, or during, if before, after, and during are all simultaneous with one another in a stream, in a multidimensional universe, the beginning and end of your life are just completely relative. There's no end to it. There's no beginning to it. It's all simultaneous. Probabilities within probabilities in a matrix where even Nietzsche's most parochial idea about eternal recurrence, I won't get into that, but even that would have some foundation in a universe where time has, where time must have a source, okay, where time itself began. Or rather, I should say, where time itself begins. It's always beginning. That's essential to Kabbalah, the word Bereshit, in the beginning. In the beginning, the mystery of in the beginning is always now. And the end is always now, and the end and the beginning are one and the same. Adobe Audition is your best audio program. I do recommend it if you have the money. Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. The cover is from the Kate Winslet film adaptation. It's one of the most incredible nude scenes I've ever seen. It's actually Kate Winslet. It's not a body double. And if that don't get your blood boiling, I don't know what will. And it's a very good adaptation, very tasteful. I'm very extremely drawn to the Victorian era. I've been hypnotized by it since I was a child. Oscar Wilde, in keeping with my Victorian thing, De Profundis, another writing, manuscript submission. Mary Riley by Valerie Martin. There's a Julia Roberts movie. I watched it. It's not that good, but it was interesting enough that I wanted to see what it was based on. It's Jekyll and Hyde from the maid's point of view, Dr. Jekyll's maid. And there's a whole literary thread from the woman's point of view about old classic stories. And this is one of the better ones. Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. Sartre's old girlfriend, lifelong girlfriend. I'm really beginning to understand their relationship better than I ever did. Mona has a thing for the person I shall call Mona. Everyone knows who I mean. Is likes Beauvoir. Second Sex. You have to consider what she was dealing with in chauvinistic France in the 40s and 50s, and she minimized the differences between men and women. I think, vive la différence. Women are in my head because they're not the same as me. That's why I think about women. And she wanted to minimize that. She wanted basically to be a man. But she had a lot of cogent things to say. I just prefer Virginia Woolf. Henry and June, Aeneas Nin. Here we're at the deepest part of my thing about women. I don't know as anyone can really relate to it, though. You look at this photo of the Betty Boop hairdo, and you just don't think that this is who you want. But her diaries are very sexually explicit, and it's must reading for a man who for a male artist. You have to read Aeneas Nin. She's incredible, and I show this to friends and they just laugh, like, no, I don't want that. And it's like, I look at it and it's like, how could you not? But then it's because of who she is, I guess. The Magus by John Fowles. I was practically raised on The Magus by John Fowles. I had a creative writing teacher who became an influence over me, as early as my 19th year, and this went on for years. And he was really the central figure of my life for quite some time. I was still forming. Virginia Woolf, a biography by her nephew Quentin Bell. You have to understand that a lot of my interest in Virginia Woolf is that she was a child during the Victorian era and was one of the personalities to reflect the transition to the 20th century in a big way. And it's that transition that's as fascinating to me as the Victorian era itself. Dash Hammett, the thin man. If you want something snappy that moves fast, this guy was a genius. And he could parody his own, this format that he created that was strictly pulp, and yet he could make fun of it as he was going, and actually make fun of personal stuff between him and his famous girlfriend. Well, I won't get into all of that, him and her. And Joe Conrad, Nostromo. I've read a lot of Joseph Conrad. I think this is the only one of his I have laying around this place. I've got them in boxes in my mom's garage. The Edge of Darkness is really where Conrad really excels. The Apocalypse Now is based on The Edge of Darkness. But again, he was from the Victorian era. He was a foreigner in England, but still, it's that period of time. The Ottoman impact on Europe. The Ottoman Turks were in Europe, their tensions constituted the first Cold War that was always heating up in skirmishes. Vlad the Impaler, who was the vampire legend of Dracula was based on, actually was, he waged a campaign of terror against the Ottomans, a guerrilla warfare, slash and burn, and it's just fascinating stuff. Really, it really is. Europe actually had to catch up with Islamic civilization in terms of the revival of the Greek classics and Euclidean geometry and engineering and all of that. It was really an primitive arms race that contributed to the rise of the Renaissance. It's just not a part of history. You don't understand that you are the product of these tensions. John Fowles, the French lieutenant's woman, author of the Magus. I mentioned the Magus and the Collector. They were his best works. The French lieutenant's woman is, he wasn't even really that proud of it. French Made Easy, what a joke. French Made Easy, huh? The Mammoth Book of Jack the Ripper. I've got a bunch of these kinds of books. YouTube for Dummies. I don't think I need that one anymore. Actually, most people would not say A Farewell to Arms is their favorite Hemingway novel, but for me, even though there were some contrivances to it, I really actually probably prefer it to any other novel I read. And he was there. I mean, he makes up things. The love story gets kind of make-believe, but still, he puts you there, and he was there, and it's an apocalyptic moment in human history, and probably the best novel of World War I that I know of, written by an American. The Other Bible, for the first time in one volume, ancient esoteric texts, Dead Sea Scrolls, the early Kabbalah, the Nag Hammadi Library, and other sources. I have the complete Nag Hammadi Library somewhere, but no, it's not readily, within reach right now. But I've read the entire thing. I read most of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the early Kabbalah is no mystery to me. What's this one? Oh, yeah. Paris in the Terror, the French Revolution. This thing reads like a novel, It just reads like a story. That's the best way to read history, to get the good general idea of it. But then you need to back that up with something more, a little drier. And this is that, the French Revolution. Yeah. You do need to know what the larger forces of history going on with all that were about. Oscar Wilde, The Complete Shorter Fiction, and Hermann Hesse, The Glass Bead Game. I've read everything by Hesse, but I don't think I have very many of his books around anymore.